We're live.
Good morning, coffee moaners. How are you? We hope you are as well as we are. Is Mark feeling well? No, Mark is not. Mark.
Who said that?
Oh, God. Just started. There's someone at the door. Poor Mark had to leave the room again yesterday because of my snoring. So he's had 3 hours sleep. But I know I snore, but he does snore as well. But it was a full moon last night. Is anybody else a full moon waker? Because the girls are like that. I mean, the girls missed their alarm this morning. They never missed their alarm. They were knackered. You and the girls are both full moon warriors. You'd have a terrible night.
It was a wolf moon last night. So I came down. I came down to sleep on the sofa over there, actually, because for various reasons, all rooms were taken. And I couldn't get to sleep. The light in here was so powerful. Did anyone else get that?
Well, hang on. Never mind the bloody light. We had no light again yesterday.
Yeah, we had a power cut.
We had a power cut again. That's 3 in 1 month. It's like the 70s around here.
But here's the thing. So the wolf moon is, and it's called the wolf moon because it's the first full moon of the year. And in January, when wolves are out prowling the most because they're searching for food because it's scarce because of how cold it is, they howl a lot more historically.
Oh.
And what was weird about last night was Chi-Chi and Toffee in their sleep were.
Oh.
So I do think the full moon.
Really.
Yeah.
Isn't it chihuahuas that are the closest to wolves?
Their internal biodynamics. Internal biology is most closely similar to the.
They're the most ancient of dogs. Chihuahuas.
Which would explain.
Can you believe that? I mean, how did a Chihuahua survive? Mind you, they are tough dogs, man.
Which would explain why their eyes are bulging out, because it's basically the personality of a wolf trying to get out of their head.
I'm terrified of Chihuahuas. I've never been to anyone's house that's got a Chihuahua that at some point I haven't been back to the wall in the corner of the room.
Kiki desperately wants a Chihuahua.
She's not having one ever.
When she's older. She's like, I see myself as one of those people with a Chihuahua in a bag. Are you joking?
She's not in a bag.
Yes, holding it like that.
Let's get her a nice cuddly Chihuahua dog.
Right, Zoe, thank you very much. I do like these kind of like water cooler chats before we get into the news stories. Better Man, the review. I'm so pleased. So many people left comments underneath it saying, thank you, relieved. I didn't want to see it because I thought I knew what I thought it was going to be. And this is what I love about film. And I hope people like about our movie channel is that we will be honest. Now, I was greeted with laughter and almost scoffs from all the younger people in our lives, children and friends of children. Well, you went to see that film? I was like, hear me out.
Because it was funny, because when we first saw the trailer, they all, Mark included, went, oh my God, this looks like, and I wish they would change that trailer. Because luckily I'd been with Robbie's wife that day and she'd been telling us all about it and saying she was almost dreading going to see it as well because she just couldn't work it out.
It's a very difficult thing to get on board with.
But she said, they had this very, very private screening of all the family, very high security, because nobody's allowed to see it, not even his own wife, before it was released. And she said they were all just blown away by it. They were crying. And so I said this to the guys when they were going, no, that looks rubbish. So I think really important, I'm going to see it this week with the girls, but really important, watch Mark's review because it might really change your mind. And cinema needs support, and especially when people are doing something that's really different and brave.
I mean, YouTube says it's a film. You have to see it before you can judge it. I mean, it seems kind of self-evident that you say that, of course. But I hate to say it, YouTube, very many film reviewers go into viewing films with a prejudgment and they decide what they're going to
often because they've been paid.
Exactly. But anyway, no, please do watch it. It's an astonishingly bold piece of filmmaking. And sadly it's absolutely tanked at the American box office.
Such a shame.
Made only $1 million at the weekend.
I think the trailer was a problem.
Okay, so what we're talking about, women who ditched the pill for fertility apps. This was weirdly on the radio this morning.
You listened. I wish I'd listened to that conversation. Tell them basically what you heard this morning.
Well, this is the idea that more and more young women, like our children's age, what are they called, Gen Zers to whatever the ones before that are, millennials, are electing to lean on fertility apps that kind of aim to tell you when you're at your sort of most fertile in a month, and therefore when to avoid having sex. Incredibly dangerous.
The old-fashioned words for it would have been the rhythm method, which is the most unreliable method you could use.
And why are they doing this? Because of more and more information, more and more kind of details about the implications of taking things like the pill. less and less research into female contraception and stuff like that, but we'll talk about it in more detail. But of course, the byproduct is there is an increase in unwanted pregnancies and an increase in abortions as a consequence. So we thought we'd talk about that.
And also we're going to be talking about the supposed Israel-Gaza ceasefire, which looks like it is going to happen. But of course, we are extremely concerned about the reality of that, and of course the killing spree that's been going on for the last 24 hours, which has been brutal. Also, Mark is very impassioned about this AI in schools. I
am. This is Keir Starmer's, and I know this is your, I love the phrase that we learned yesterday, your wheelhouse.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, your sort of familiar territory. This is AI, or artificial intelligence. Keir Starmer's announced it for all sectors of the economy. They say that it could bring in an extra £47 billion a year, I think, in 10 years' time, streamlining productivity, taking out the kind of repetitive jobs. Okay, but I want to focus on the school side of it, because, of course, in all aspects of AI, they want to apply it to every aspect of life. Hospitals, waiting lists, doctors doing notes.
Actual doctors, AI doctors.
Well, AI doctors, but also taking away all the note taking. I mean,
there'll be a lot of it that is really, really useful. Like anything new that comes in, we go, oh, this is fantastic, like we did with our phones. And then it's like, oh my God, how do we shut this down a bit? It's like, look at. But so I suppose we are in a place where we have no choice, because this is the way of the world, and the rest of the world will be doing it. But yeah, can you start with that? Because I've just got to go to the.
Right, okay.
I didn't have time.
So AI, let's talk about AI. Michu, obviously looking forward to your contributions on this. This is your comfort zone, in a sense. So Labour Prime Minister said AI, or has announced that AI will transform the lives of everyone, from teachers to home builders. But of course, any sort of suggestion around AI what comes with it is a fear for the security of jobs, transforming certain kind of work sectors. And, whenever you sort of dig into the detail, and there isn't much detail in this other than them saying that, Prime Minister Keir Starmer saying it could bring about incredible change. So AI will give us incredible change. Labour has brought about change. And he says, from teachers personalising lessons to supporting small businesses with their record keeping to speeding up planning applications, it has the potential to transform the lives of working people. Now, this isn't, as with all things, there's good and bad. It's never just one thing. And so, like Michu says, look, chipping in with the first point here, yes, AI will take over repetitive toil in back office jobs, including in teaching, but AI will destroy jobs, millions of jobs. I also would, you're right. I mean, there are many repetitive jobs that you feel that AI could take care of and look after. I mean, I'm going to just bear with me on this analogy for a minute. I've slowly come off my ADHD meds, because I found that the ADHD meds were almost working like AI. They would allow me to do repetitive sort of things.
You felt a bit like slave-driven, didn't you?
Well, yeah, no, but they only allowed me to focus on the repetitive kind of quite administrative things. And when it came to kind of free thinking, creativity and all the rest of it, and sort of innovating and spitballing and going off on one and all that, it completely closed it down. And so, of course, no one thing is one thing. And the other thing is that we are all living our lives sort of couched within AI already. I mean, it's affecting us already, whether it be, when you go onto Google now and you search, I don't know if you've noticed, it's really fucking annoying. The first thing you get is chat GPT, or the AI definition of something, before you get to anyone else's opinion.
Now, mine was doing that and suddenly it stopped. I can't work out what. I didn't do anything.
Maybe you accidentally hit a setting. But where my major concern...
That's the only way I would hit a setting accidentally.
My big concern, I just found myself just sort of spitting feathers when I was driving the girls to school, and they were like asking questions about it, because on the radio they were talking about teachers. And so, the idea is, let's look at the positives. So it could take away lots...
Just before we go on to teachers, just what you were saying there about taking away a lot of the repetitive and the boring jobs. You know how we're always... more and more since the pandemic, we're shifting towards people going, why am I just working? Was I put on the planet to just work endlessly, never quite making enough money, always running against myself? Also, and so many jobs aren't even that needed, are they? But what if there were any chance? Because surely governments across the world don't think that they're just going to take all these jobs and people are just going to starve. So could it be that life will move more towards human beings having more time?
No.
What would it mean then?
I
What
think-
would you do? What's going to happen to those millions of people that don't
They'll be out
do
of
the
work.
boring jobs?
Because
And then what will happen?
that's the big question, and that for me is the big unknowability. Even MeTube agrees that it could completely transform the workforce. I mean, it would be a
But
different
where
kettle
will
of-
they go? How will people
Well,
eat?
precisely, and those are the bigger questions.
Oh.
What will happen? How will? I mean, the irony is that AI is being designed to remove repetitive, pointless jobs, and unfortunately, the vast majority of jobs are repetitive and pointless because they are propping up a system that props up a system that simply needs to flush money
Keep
around the
going
system.
round, yeah.
And so, you know, if you my worry about it is that if AI removes too many, as you rightly say, of those repetitive, feelingly pointless, time-consuming jobs, will it lead to more productivity? Will it actually benefit us, or will it only benefit the top line or the bottom line for the companies who can lay off staff?
Yeah.
They can lean on tech. They are not thinking about the aftercare of their staff who've not entered their business.
Because I'm moving on, because you're going to go on to the AI in education. So are they going to say, well, we're going to educate people better so that these manual jobs, these boring jobs, people won't want to do them because they'll be, you know, they'll have a better education and a better, but there is only a finite amount of those jobs anyway. I mean, look at Cuba. Everyone in Cuba is educated to an unbelievably high level, but there's so much unhappiness because they're educated to this really high level, but then they're doing really menial jobs because they've got enough jobs. And you think, how will this ever work? I mean,
Nicole
I'm
Gilroy says,
hopeful.
my husband works in AI and he says we're going into this AI era with our eyes closed. He's terrified.
Oh, tell us more.
That's what
Nicole.
terrifies me
Tell us
about,
more.
and I am slightly terrified by the government, and I don't mean it's just this government. Rishi Sunak was talking much about this too. I do worry that if we
was AI, wasn't it?
I worry that if we run to, well, most politicians feel AI. If we run towards it too quickly, we could trip over ourselves. MeTube, it will create a gap between highly paid STEM jobs and lower paid service jobs. The other thing, here's the thing that really kind of worries me.
There's a gap already, though, MeTube. I don't know what you mean.
Well, they're saying that it will get bigger, and I, you
so
know,
the rich and poor will
there
get more extreme.
Exactly.
So more hell on earth.
Potentially.
Oh God.
Potentially. I mean, here's the other thing. I mean, a lot of people will say this, and I understand it. They go, "Oh yeah, but AI expands our potential." So AI in, say, health, AI technology is allowing them to much more quickly throw lots of kind of details into a computer system and come up with cures for things. You know, there is a real cutting edge technology that's making progress in the world of diagnostics, treatments, medicines, finding kind of compounds that humans wouldn't necessarily have thought to bring together to cure. But here's the thing, AI, say, for example, even in health, say it can find rapidly Enhertu even more quickly. Doesn't change whether Enhertu is then affordable or deliverable to the population.
It does if it's discovered quicker, because the reason why these are so expensive, these drugs, is there's so much investment,
but
so much
who
time.
believes the cost? Who believes the cost? Who believes the company that's got the AI that's developing the tech isn't going to just charge more for the process of having the technology to do it? So AI sounds great, but the other problem with AI
nothing is just great, is it? There's
who
a
is
cost
programming AI, and this is where my worry with
yeah.
education and AI kicks in. There's the idea that it could deal with all of the kind of backroom, you know, I mean, for example, here's a small example. A part of a teacher's job is writing a school report, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, for the last however many years, whenever we've seen a school report, they felt like they've been written from a generic list of paragraphs anyway. They rarely feel
that's
like
that's because Dina says, my sister says, that they are so restricted on what they're allowed to say.
Precisely.
You know, like when we got reports, go, little Johnny's being a right little shit.
Yeah.
He needs to put himself together. You can't accuse a child of anything. So everything has to be quite vanilla and flatline.
So in a weird way, let's call it being highly politically correct about being honest about your children has led to a sort of diminishing of any meaningful kind of feedback or color or anything that's particular to your child. So just in the writing of a school report, they're saying AI would allow teachers to be able to pump in certain points, and the AI would just write the report so they can move on more quickly and get that work done quickly. I don't see why that's a good thing. I think it's already a bad thing that it's got to where it's got to. I don't see a report being even less specific and more generic is problematic.
The report doesn't bother me so much.
But it's a small
whatever,
example of what the
report-
admin is. But then when you get into classrooms,
yeah, the classroom.
so here's the AI is going to be used for teaching plans, classroom plans, for how to teach, how to deliver.
You know what? You know where a part of me just wants to, because we have to try and see the good as well, because it's going to happen. So, you know, so many of us struggle with maths, don't they? And do you remember that school when we took Maddie to, and that maths teacher sold us that complete and utter lie, which is like, I know that a lot of people that are in the creatives really struggle with maths and struggle with numbers. So I'm the sort of teacher, you can ask me 1,000 times the same question and I will patiently answer it. And do you remember then when she went to the school, she said, he was your classic maths teacher. She was like, unless you understood it the first time, we moved on to the next thing. And I, you know, what you struggle, when you struggle with numbers, you really need that kind of patience that will just go over and over. I'm sorry, I've rarely seen in teachers. So is there a gap for that, for people that, you know, that they could bring you back up?
So there's an AI bot that just keeps answering the same question.
No, they wouldn't, because bots are much cleverer than that. But if you're needing to help to be brought up, because you can't have, most people can't have tutors. Most schools won't give extra time. So you can see how it would initially be really attractive.
Right.
And then down the line, you know, you've got your kids suffering, say, well, you know, look, we've seen the results here, you know, they go off with this little AI bot moment, and then we get them up to schedule and we get them on the right track, and let's go. And then before you know it, they're deciding. But already, look at the way history is taught to our kids. We cut out all the bits we don't want them to know about our countries, don't we?
Well, you're jumping. Yeah, let me just So jumping back in on the, yes, it can solve sort of menial tasks and do all those
That's
bits.
how it will start.
Yeah, that's how it will start. But that's the problem. There's the thin end of the wedge.
Exactly.
If you start removing, even for teachers, the need to have to think creatively, and when I say think creatively, I don't mean write a book. I mean just think creatively about a student.
But do you think teachers might say they'll get more time to do that?
No. How? If they're having less time to think creatively about the feedback on a child, less time to think creatively about their lesson plans, because they're pumping it all into AI. My worry is that you get a less and less tailored education for any students. You get more and more of a generic mass.
That's what we've got anyway.
Exactly. So we're already moving there. This will be a continuation and a solidifying of it. MeToo makes a really good point here. Another danger of AI is that it causes people to start becoming lazy. AI results in us generating similar outputs. So creative thinking becomes secondary. And I just want to get this point across.
Exactly.
Say history. Let's talk about the delivering of a history class plan for a class. Whose history?
Exactly.
The history AI is going to be dealing with when it's formulating the plan is going to be the history that the programmer, even if it's generative, regenerative, whatever that means, you know, AI that kind of learns as it goes, the parameters of that AI learning can only reach so far. So, for example, if Gaza doesn't exist in the mind of the AI programmer, that history lesson is going to be incredibly jaundiced.
But that's what we have anyway. Look at it. That's what we've got anyway. Look at what we're discovering about how woefully edited our history lessons are.
But
you
what
know,
are you
you
saying by
talk to
that
a
same
black
argument? You're
person
saying,
living
well, we
in
may
this
as well do it.
country that's gone through this education system here, and they say, we were told nothing.
But you're saying by that extension, we may as well do it because we're already there.
What I'm saying is, I feel we've got all of those problems that you're talking about now, because our education system is so old-fashioned. It's just stuck in a time warp, I think. And there's no room for creativity, and teachers will say to you all the time, we used to be able to like veer off a bit. Now we can't, because we have such tight schedules of what we've got to do.
The creativity of being a teacher is part of the joy. It's constantly being eroded. Just because it's being eroded, and that's a really good point, DP. You're making a good point, because yes, that's where we're at now. But many, many good teachers are fighting against that, saying, let us have the creativity back. Not let's double down on it and let's enshrine this as a sort of generic mass of learning.
But with this, if there's any teachers here that would want to answer, but with the situation that we've got now, where the governments are not going to give you any more money and are not going to give you any more teachers because they're not, do you think that there is a way that by having AI as well could free you up in some other way? Because you know, I mean, say for marking homework, for instance.
Yeah, but that's a personal thing.
No, I know, but
in the creative
many
arts,
teachers will say that it's almost an AI situation now because they're so restricted by successive governments coming in, changing the plan, telling people that don't know anything about teaching.
And that's where the undervaluing of creativity and the arts kicks in. Rishi Sunak would have you think that because it could work, and you can see how AI would work with marking a maths paper, there's a right and a wrong answer. You can see that. But what will happen is you apply it to that, and then some fucking bright spark will go, well, let's do the same with English literature.
Yeah.
Let's do the same with this. And suddenly all the fucking, all of the creative, you know, subjects become straitjacketed into an incredibly strict set of rules. And the other problem is that came up in this article, this piece I was listening to yesterday, more and more students are using ChatGPT to write their essays. You put in an essay question, you know, why was David Cronenberg a director, something with a quote, discuss. If you put that into ChatGPT, it will give you an essay. Get this, Nadia. There's then AI software that you put that ChatGPT created essay into that personalizes it. It doesn't, you're not even personal. It's not like you ChatGPT it and then you go in and go, oh, I'll personalize it. You then get another app that puts in what they call, guess what some of them are called? The human touch. So we have an AI human touch. So yes, you can to a degree track AI delivered, but basically what all of this is doing is telling everyone, don't bother using this.
Yeah.
To help those who may not understand, AI is not programmed, it's trained by feeding it information. If you want to bias an AI, you feed it only certain information. Exactly, but that
isn't that programmed.
Programming, maybe that's not the right word, but who is putting that information in? Where is the information coming from? You know,
but that is no different to the education system now. Look at our history lessons. Ask anyone from, as we all become more and more awake to actually what we have done, colonialization and all of that has done around the world. We're not taught that in any real, way, are we? So that's been totally curated and decided by those in power.
Bethan Matthews makes an interest, but we just don't have enough teachers. At least AI will have some knowledge about the subject they're teaching. Currently have qualified PE teachers stepping in to teach maths.
This is what I mean, Bethan. The state of it is so bad. I wonder if they've let it run down so much that people don't fight against the AI.
Well, exactly, but therein lies the problem. So what are we saying? The system's so bad and doesn't work. We need to use something that will end up being so bad and reductive of what it means to be a human being. That's better than nothing. I mean,
listen, I totally agree with all your fears. I'm just saying how you can see it will be brought in, how we will be
it's going to be brought in,
how the seduction of it, you know.
Well, I'm anti it.
Look
and
how
I will
many
teachers
are leaving the profession. You know, I mean, when we, you know, because our girls were homeschooled for a long while, but then when our daughter went back to school, oh my God, we just couldn't believe what we were hearing about what it's actually like for teachers. You know, kids off their bloody face, stoned or ketamine or taking 6 bloody Red Bulls on the way in, you know, disengaged, disinclined, teachers just like very, very like worn out and just disheartened, you know, and you just think, Jesus Christ, where are we going to end up? Well, that's our education system.
I just really, really worry, and I'm not one for. Oh, fuck it! I'm sick of people saying I'm not one for. Look,
you're not one
conspiracy theories, but there are conspiracies.
Alternative thinking.
There are conspiracies at large, active right now to control all of us, and that's fact. That is, you know.
Why don't you just say an alternative opinion?
How they're done and the nature of them is different for everyone. But I mean, it is happening, and I just want to read what Cam. Sorry, I've just lost your comment, Cam Hayes. AI uses 25 years of input into the internet and consolidates it all for the best responses. So although the base of it is from real people, it's ultimately a robot. I mean, you know, this speaks to that. Do you remember in Ex Machina, he created the perfect woman for him based on his porn searches. So the big question at the back of this also, which at the moment the Labour Party Labour government aren't talking about, is data. What data are they going to use?
I get so scared.
I mean, I don't know if anyone's been asked this on your
Snapchat,
Instagram. Christos, a friend, you mentioned it and we all shared it. When Instagram and all of your social medias ask you, are you happy to elect into AI mining, basically your images and all your content for data purposes? Say no. because
Have I said no?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think I have.
You know, say no, because they're going to take that, and the originality of anything to do with you is going to be factored into this great big mulchy machine.
Oh God.
Mm.
Well, this is going to be an ongoing conversation over the years, isn't it, folks?
Okay.
Sorry, do I look cross-eyed all of a sudden?
No, not at all.
Oh, okay.
No.
Carry on.
Okay, women ditching the pill for fertility apps.
Yeah, so tell them about this conversation.
Sorry,
I'm very annoyed.
Sorry.
I'm very annoyed that you didn't ring me and say, listen to this really interesting conversation on LBC.
Because whenever I do, I don't get you. You're on the loo or you're doing something, and then it's over. And
I'm
I don't know.
always on
But as
the
soon as I
loo.
call you, I'm off the program, so I can't hear it.
True.
So this was I was saying to Nads, it's funny how radio presenters can do a topic without having to do anything really.
Compared to us.
Yeah, so Nick Ferrari opened this topic with the story that the numbers of people using contraceptive pills has gone down, more number of women using fertility apps to sort of basically manage whether they get pregnant or fall pregnant. Basically, the reason more and more younger people are doing this is they don't like the hormonal side effects potentially of the pill. And so he threw open this topic, this study, and he talked to a woman who was saying, we have to ask questions. Why are women turning to things like these fertility apps, which she said are profoundly unreliable when you're trying not to get pregnant.
It is very unreliable.
But
they do have to listen as to why more young women are turning away from the pill. And, you know, there's just more information about it.
So let's ask the question.
We just popped it without thinking.
Yeah, so guys, anyone here, what are your feelings about contraceptive pills, the contraceptives that are available to women, choices, and what do you think about this? Because I'm just seeing already someone here just said someone said something about Big Pharma.
I mean, basically, these are the choices that we have as
people
women.
are suspicious of Big Pharma, someone said. Yeah.
We have the pill, we have the coil. I used the coil for years. I just used the copper coil, but now you have the coil with progesterone in it. So a lot of people are wary of the progesterone, the hormone. Also, to have the coil put in, it's a piece of metal, piece of copper, it was for me, that's sort of that shaped, right, with a sort of thing hangs down so that you can check it's still there, 2 strings. So this piece of metal, they squeeze it together and then they put it through your cervix, a tiny little hole like that, and they put it through, and then as they release it, it opens up into your womb. Now, this can be utterly excruciating, especially if you haven't had a baby vaginally, because the cervix hasn't opened to 10 centimeters. But there has never been any discussion about women having any kind of anesthetic with that. Now, gentlemen here, imagine that happening through the end of your penis.
Yeah.
Right. With no anesthetic. And often you might have that from somebody it's the first time they're doing it. I had the coil a number of times when I had the babies, had it put back in. Sometimes it was very painful. Sometimes it wasn't painful to put at all, depending on who was putting it in. But you should be offered anesthetic. It can be excruciating. If you are wanting to have the coil, ask for some anesthetic, take some painkillers. You can, ask your doctor about that. Can you take some painkillers beforehand? Also, ask how experienced the person is, because it's brutal. So that's put off a lot of women. Can be brutal, can be. So that's put a lot of women off that particular one. Then there's condoms, and a lot of people have really bad reactions to rubber. And also they have fellas that go, not nearly as good as without a rubber. And, the options are tiny. And what is it? 1% of budget of
2% of sort of all
research
health research budget into contraception and fertility. 2% is spent on women's contraceptive options.
So this was an article quite a while back actually, in the Times.
Yeah, can I just clarify? Someone was just asking, there's no new news about the contraceptive pill or its side effects. Those are well-known, well-reported.
Well, I didn't know this.
Yeah, but that's quite old. I'm saying there's no new in the last. I'm saying this story. But this story, the peg for this story I'm just explaining. Is the release of new data that shows actually, which I failed to say in the intro, a massive increase in abortions. The consequence of leaning on these fertility apps is a massive increase.
And really, the only place where you could use these fertility apps is if you're kind of thinking about getting pregnant anyway, but it is
Yeah.
not a foolproof way to stop, to avoid getting pregnant. But no, I was just looking around this morning because it's interesting how often doctors and gynecologists, when a woman says, "Oh, I'm a bit nervous about the pill," they go, "Well, but where have you been getting that information from?" And they just faff people away.
So people thought of
I mean, the
punching them
list
when they
of
say that.
side effects, the paper goes like this, right?
Yeah.
So this is an old article from the Times. Now, I always knew that it shifted your sense of smell, the pill, because of the change in your hormones. And we don't realize how much we use our sense of smell when finding a mate. You could really like somebody and then you don't quite like their smell. I've always liked his smell. And the pill can change that. So you can end up with the wrong bloody person.
Oh.
But what I didn't know was, listen to this. This is so interesting. This
Elsa
report,
Pop, good point. There are side effects to every drug.
every drug, found that on average, women on the daily pill were 10% less good at making judgments on. Hang on to another.
Facial expressions.
Yeah, to read emotions in the eye. Don't you think that's incredible?
That's astonishing.
Well, why is that astonishing? Because we underestimate the power of our cycle and that our hormones. Yeah. When you think about what happens when a teenager gets hormonal, explosive, insane. The changes are massive.
Yeah.
When we think about when we're perimenopausal, when we're menopausal, the reason why they have the combined pill where you would have 7 days break and you would bleed, it's not a real period, is because there was an understanding that psychologically something happens, a woman needs to see that blood. Don't you think that's mad? Don't you think that's crazy?
So literally you need to see the blood?
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to have a break on the pill. They did it so that women would still feel they were having a period, but it's not a real period. Oh. I find that fascinating. Wow. So basically,
so it's a little bit like vegan burgers.
This study said I can never say that word. Say that word for me. Cyclical variations of estrogen and progesterone levels are known to affect women's emotions, recognition, and influence activity and connections in associated brain regions. This is from taking the pill, right? That's just one little thing. Since oral contraceptives work by suppressing estrogen and progesterone, that's why when you bleed, it's not a real period. It makes sense that oral contraceptives also affect your emotion recognition. Now, we can just go, oh, it's affecting your emotion recognition, but that's huge. You can be making mistakes all the time in your relationships, whatever. Now, there are some good things that happen with the pill, like you're not going to get pregnant. Also, it can help with endometriosis and heavy periods. It can reduce the risk of ovarian, uterine, and colon cancers, but also
and 20% less bowel cancer.
But also, it increases slightly the risk of breast and cervical cancer, blood clots, and high blood pressure. And that's why a lot of younger women are not taking the pill. When you talk to them, it's that fear of breast cancer because there's such an increase in breast cancer.
So what I thought, as a father to 4 young daughters. Or 2 young daughters and 2 women. I feel really sort of heartbroken, really, for young women. And Zoe's talking a lot here about your PMDD. Currently waiting for a women's health specialist appointment for my PMDD.
You're still waiting for that.
Dread what will be stuck up me. The pill never worked for me and made me feel worse. What we're seeing here is, so you've got the terrible consequences, many more abortions, and what comes with that is great trauma, great distress. These aren't decisions and things that happen lightly. You've also got a young population or young women who are trying, for whatever reasons, to make better decisions for their bodies. So they're wanting to make healthier decisions. Now, some would argue, and I felt there was a woman trotted onto the radio show this morning. And does anyone else hear those sort of, and I'm sorry to sound, because when you get a man talking about this, you think, fuck off, you're a bloke. Stop talking about women's issues.
Oh, it can be very patronising.
Very patronising. But don't you think there's also a breed of women who sound like patronising men in the medical establishment who are doing the job of medical men? And she was there saying, well, it's a lot of young women being caught up in a social media frenzy of all this.
It sounds like the gynecologist we were talking
to. And on one level, I was listening to her, I was thinking, well, you're probably right a little bit, but you can't swipe.
No, but also they're getting information. Not every single bit of information you get online is wrong.
Exactly. And also you're dismissing an entire generation's assessment of something. You can't just go, oh, well, because you've got your information not from the Portland, you then swipe everything out the window. It just doesn't work like that. And I just feel I just think, and so the big sort of thing that came up was the lack of funding and the lack of research.
Lack of funding, inability to get appointments, GP appointments. So before we turn around and blame the stupidity of women, maybe what we should do is start listening to them and listening and saying, we are not happy. We have all the responsibility 9 times out of 10 for not getting pregnant. With all of these things that are on offer have a huge shift in your body. You know, what I say to young girls, if I'm asked, I say the copper coil, because I know so many women that we used it for years and years and years.
Needs a rebrand, doesn't it? Because
Sarah,
the coil,
there is so much misinformation out here for women's health. My doctor's not listening to me, and I think I'm perimenopause. Exactly, not listening to you.
The woman who was saying only 2% is funding goes into the research, and there needs to be more research, and no, it's not reliable, it's not a great solution for young people, but we have to ask questions why. She then said to Nick Ferrari, she said, "Oh, and what about the chip or the stick that you get put in your arm?
3 rods put into your arm with a contraception."
Yeah.
And I think you're stuck with it for 3 months. Correct me if I'm wrong. So like if it's not suiting you, you've got it for 3 months. Is that right?
He sounded horrified.
Because look, he's how old is he? He's never even bloody thought about it. What it actually means.
Of course he has.
I get so defensive with women on this point.
Yeah.
And was that Sarah who was saying about not listening to doctor? Go to the menopause doctor's website and then get the information there on how you can approach your doctor if they're not listening, and ask for a different doctor, a doctor that specialises in women's health, because you are allowed to do that.
So many people, look at this. Marie Pitt, sorry to hear this. I had a hysterectomy and bowel op 4 weeks ago, went straight into medical menopause, but can't get a doctor's appointment for HRT for another 2 weeks.
What?
Then it will only be a phone call, and then you might be greeted by, do you remember how you were treated on the phone?
Oh my God.
Fucking hell.
I wish I'd recorded that. It's not our GP. Our GP is lovely. It was a different one.
Yeah.
But what I see that they knew you were going to go into a medical menopause, which basically means, bless you, poor you, that's so tough. It means you just literally went off the side of a cliff, because you're suddenly plunged into all those hormones going, how come they hadn't discussed that with you before your operation? So you were already taking the hormones. Do you know what?
I'm getting
ring up and go completely mad, and
just
say I am at absolute breaking point, and unless I'm seen, the awful thing is, unless you get tough like that, nobody listens.
Can I also just say more generally, and I hugely thank you for opening my eyes and knocking the edges around off my blinkered vision when it comes to things like conventional health and pharma and all this kind of stuff. It strikes me more and more, certainly around women's issues, but most issues, that the medical establishment seem like the least appropriate people sometimes to be talking about some of the conditions they're dealing with. There is such a resistance to any holistic sense of any illness.
And it's so awful, because when you see holistic practitioners, you know, they will often want to work with the doctor. We'll have you Why can't we just be more open to more things? Yeah. Because everything is about money. Yeah. That's why.
Yeah, but there's a lot of money to be made in stupid vitamin pills. Anyway, so finally, and not finally because it's any less important, but we haven't talked about this for a while, and
people may not know this is on the brink.
We are on the cusp, potentially.
Might have actually.
A potential ceasefire deal is being talked about between Israel and Hamas.
And if you're anything like us, we immediately went, well, how many times have we heard this?
Yeah.
And then always Israel backs down, But apparently this really is very, very close. There are talks going on in Doha. And then since that, the last 24 hours has been absolutely double horrific in Gaza. They've gone on a complete killing spree. I've just been watching a report on Al Jazeera. People are just panicking because they're hearing a rumor of a ceasefire, but they literally don't know where a bomb is going to hit next. 6 children were killed this morning already, and they attacked a residential building, just bombed it straight down to the floor. 80 people dead so far since yesterday. But of course, what I get really angry about with these figures is the injuries are so horrific. So on that day, they might not be called dead, but they are going to die because there are no hospitals. So we are very, very sort of, we are in a sort of shattered state.
Yes.
Because we're so worried that people, there's ceasefire now. Oh, well, that's good. Because I was starting to get really worried that I had nothing to say about this. Now I don't need to say anything because there's a ceasefire. A ceasefire to what and left with what? There are a minimum of 21,000. That's the bare minimum, because those are just ones they've got written down. 21,000 children missing, right? Then you've got all the children that have had their legs and arms amputated. Then you've got all the children that are completely orphaned. And when I say completely orphaned, not a single family member left. What's going to happen to them? The houses, where are they going to live? How are they going to eat? And also, on the day that Israel agreed to a ceasefire with Lebanon, how many times did they attack in that first day? I can't remember. So we're very, very, very cautious, and we would ask you to still stay engaged with us on what's going on.
Now, my worry with this is even more so. My feelings on this are even more cynical. Everyone wants a stop to the bombardment and the killing of innocents. What we've seen in the last 24 hours, as a ceasefire feels possibly closer than it has done before. Many saying because Trump has said all hell will break loose, but Biden and Trump are now squabbling over who's responsible for it. Qatar have said statements from both Biden and Trump have helped get us to this point. They're trying to sort of equalize the responsibility. My problem with all of this is, let's stick with the analogy of Israel and big baby Bibi being the biggest temperamental teenager toddler in the world. It's like they've been told you can no longer keep stamping your foot and smashing people and smashing things up. So what do? In the last 24 hours, they try and smash things up even more.
Not only that, I just heard on Al Jazeera that Netanyahu has gone to the far right and to the middle and all of this. And the ones, I can't remember what his name, maybe you can see it. One of the far right came out today and said, this is not the time to stop the war. This is the time was it Ben Gvir? To thoroughly cleanse Gaza and to take it. Now, yet again, that is genocidal language. How are we still questioning whether this is a genocide? To cleanse. Right. Cleanse of people, of human beings, and move in.
Right. We keep talking, the word scam keeps coming up because of AI. Wait for the biggest scam in geopolitical history.
Yeah.
What will happen here is a ceasefire will be announced. Behind the scenes, negotiations and diplomacy will have happened where the incoming Trump administration will have made so many promises, unable to kind of pin down in a document, or they will have made so many diplomatic promises to Israel that they essentially will be saying to Israel, don't worry, BB, you can keep your nappy on, you're going to be safe, we're going to sanction the ICC. Basically, America is going to make it so safe for Israel to say, ceasefire. But then the devil will be in the detail. There will be an attempt to whitewash history. There will be an attempt to delegitimize the International Criminal Court. They will then sanction the International Criminal Court. There will be potentially a sort of aggression against Iran, and there will be a solidifying of everything Israel has done. What Israel has also said in these ceasefire discussions is this: we will remove our troops upon the handing over of all hostages from populated areas. Now, the devil is in the detail. They've tried to make northern Gaza completely unpopulated. So what does that mean? What has the biggest donor to Trump said she wants for Israel? The West Bank. This deal, nothing. When you've got a bully in the playground the size of Bibi, the biggest baby in the world, when you've got that toddler running rampant around, they don't stop. Needing the water. They don't stop these kind of things for a sudden, suddenly I feel full of the milk of human kindness and let's get a two-state solution. No, they only do that if they're promised the biggest tub of fucking Nutella in the world somewhere else. So don't buy it. There might be a ceasefire, and it's great for those on the ground if the bombs stop dropping, but it will be the start of a new propaganda aggression. And everyone needs to have their wits about them, and everyone needs to stay engaged.
And please look at my Instagram post yesterday. There's a beautiful little girl, Habiba, means beloved in Arabic. She's 2.5. She's going to die in the next few days if she's not evacuated. I mean, the best, lose limbs or die. She's very, very sick. And she is the only one that's been given permission to evacuate. She's 2.5. Nobody's been given permission to travel with her. No mum, no dad, no aunt, no nothing. So please go and check out my feed, my post, and write to your elected official, even if they're rubbish, because just to keep on at them is really important. Keep that pressure up. But I mean, children, not numbers. They were messaging me and they said they're in absolute pieces about this little girl. It's so heartbreaking. So the cruelty works in many different ways.
The cruelty works in many different ways. You don't need to be dropping bombs on the Gazans for the genocide to continue. And I think what I ask all of you who've been engaged with this fully from the beginning and have been in the same sort of boat as us, watch all those blue tickers, all those journalists, all those people who've stayed quiet, didn't stay quiet about Ukraine. You watch. When the word ceasefire lands, there's going to be an absolute rush of voices and posts and people willing to engage with it, because we've got past the uncomfortable part of it. We haven't. But they will be able to lean now on that word. But we've got a ceasefire.
But I hope they do. Let's get those social media influencers, those people that's supposed to care so much about children and everything, because what we can do then is say, oh, great, because now we've got this situation where we've got tens of thousands of orphans. We've got a school that needs to be built. We've got this. And then can we share GoFundMe posts?
And now let's talk about the really uncomfortable thing. Oh, you're happy there's a ceasefire. Oh, it actually exists for you because you've posted about a ceasefire. Right, let's talk about the G word, because a genocide happened before the ceasefire. Keep it going.
We love you guys. Thank you for sticking with us. So if you could go and look at my post, share that post. There's a template letter at Children at Not Numbers in their bio that you can just fill in really easily and then send to your MP.
And if you go to I think it's the government portal.gov, there's if you put find my MP into Google, it will take you to the right website.
Just put in the postcode. Yeah.
All right, guys, have a lovely day. Stay safe. Bye.